Isimo, Ishagumida, Moscow, Gigoge, you know who this be. Ilabongi, Simanoli, Chada, Chikasha, and Chalape, and so many more. I can't even count them all. But don't count us out. Cause Uno no said with that and went in with that about Moscow Geek. Sending love to all my Isdijadi, set my people free. Can't let no white Denali tell my story. So we get it jumping on the beat. Tell the truth and bring the real heat. And make them lies beat their feet. All Indians, one nation under the Most High. Ancient religion resurrected and properly applied. Ain't no limits touch the sky. Jotties up and we down the ride.
You know they carry me, they play.
Stone Gold is the more of a Chadi. And today we want to talk about a few things. Let's read the scripture first. You built yourself a mound and made yourself a lofty shrine in every public square. Okay, with this reference from the Bible, we can confirm the fact that mound building did not begin in Mesoamerica, but indeed the mound building and the pyramid building was taken from ancient Africa and ancient Middle East and ancient Asia, and it was what? Brought here, the knowledge was brought here with our ancestors, the Native Americans, beginning with the Olmec. Now, in spite of the many polytheistic deities that our people worshiped over here, and I'm speaking of all of the Native Americans, we all have an understanding of Yahweh, okay? And we all have metaphysical words and definitions to describe his being. And oftentimes they resemble one another as we come from a similar genetic background, but we're made up of many different tribes, okay? There's 12 tribes in Israel. The Israelites were scattered. Judah and Levi ended up together. And now we're in a time of globalization whereby we're able to do what? Migrate and move. And the powers that be are trying to stop that as we speak. But we understand that all of the Native Americans, in spite of the gods that they worshiped, plural, they knew and understood the one creator. They did have a doctrine of unity. And we have words that they transmitted these ideas to us in. Okay? Now we have to get really deep into Native American religion to cover all of this, but just quickly, we know that the Mayans understood Hunapku, literally the one deity, okay? And they believed in Ku, Hunapku, okay? Life force, divine power of the one God. The Aztecs, they worshiped many, many gods, but they worship those many gods as forms of their one God, even though we know that's corrupt. Nevertheless, that's what happened. And the reality of it was the founding principle of their entire philosophy was still based off the existence of a single creator who had no gender, but was expressed as a father-mother, expressed in a duality, but was indeed the one supreme deity, okay? And they called him Ometeotl. Now, Ome means two, and Teotl is understood as that which is sacred and the source of which is sacred that vivifies and regenerates, okay? The regenerative power and force that permeates the universe and encompasses divinity itself, okay? And this was the entire Aztec religious philosophy. This was the concept that that philosophy was built upon. So we know that they did have an understanding of the doctrine of unity, okay? We also see amongst the Algonquin, Ashamonedo or Washamonedo, okay, or Monedo, We see amongst the Osage, Wakanda and Wakonta. We see also Wakantanka amongst the Lakota. We also see Ababenili and Inkyabu amongst the Mashkogi, Shogidamezi. Okay. And we also realize that if the Olmecs really spoke a Mende language, as Clyde Winters has supposed and has theorized, and he has provided proofs in his hypothesis that they spoke a Mende language. And the argument amongst the scholars is, was that language passed down? And did the Olmecs speak their language? Or did they speak bits and pieces of Mayan language? I think the answer is that they spoke both. Because when we come down into the Muskogee language, we find Mayan words. We find Totonic words. We find these words that come from Africa. Now, in looking at the fact that we find West African DNA in a lot of our people over here, it makes sense if the Olmecs were a Mende speaking people. And this also ties them into Arabia. Okay? And at the same time, it ties them into all of the West African tribes, specifically the ones that are mostly represented in the African American / Native Americans blood. So there's a lot of things that we can learn from studying Mesoamerica and Native America from start to finish, because what we'll also notice about these religious systems is that they are just like the religious systems from Africa in the Middle East. They are identical. The only thing that differs is some of the practices and the actual names of the deities. Because once again, the Native Americans represented many nations of indigenous people. Okay? And that was what was so beautiful about our existence. Many people were able to come together and forge a society that has not been duplicated since. Technology continued to flow. The technology that we got from our Arab Moorish ancestors continued to flow. Okay? The knowledge that we got from our African ancestors continued to flow. And we mastered those sciences. We mastered the metaphysical, spiritual realities. We came to understanding. We came to consummate that knowledge. And that's how we got the modern world that we're living in today. I'm just overwhelmed. I'm just rambling right now because so much information has been uncovered through studying all of Mesoamerica and getting deeper into understand the language and getting deeper into understanding the things in our language today that actually originate in Mesoamerica. And as we go into the religion, as we go into the language, we unlock ideas and concepts, and we unlock the way our ancestors thought and how they see the world and how they saw the world and how they saw the future. All of these things are very important when it comes to who we are, our identity, okay? Because we live in a world whereby identity and culture are stripped away, okay? Society is not about being culturally conscious, okay? It's about leaving your culture, abandoning your culture for what is popular culture, okay? The Native American way of life is in all actuality antithetical to the American way of life. And we look at the movement today, a lot of people are talking about the Native America, not understanding that Native America had a covenant with the Creator, and they violated that covenant. Many of the Hebrews today, who are the descendants of the Native Americans, you know, they're trying to find out why they are in this trouble that they're in. You know, we weren't there in the days of Israel. We didn't commit those sins. But we are the descendants of the Native Americans who came over here, and there was a portion of them that wanted to worship the Lord, and that's all they wanted to do. And then you had some who devoted themselves to their gods. And what we've already been told from Hadith and prophecy is that the worst part of us would actually come to power. And that's exactly what happened in the time of Native America. The worst elements of our collective communities were the ones who made it to power, and they ruled. But that polytheistic, theocratic rule was not fully representational of the full population, because indeed, we were Israelites and we are Israelites. And so there was always a conscious knowledge of the original pure rituals. And that is where the Muskogee tribe comes in. And the Cherokee tribe comes in. We were staunch worshipers of the Most High. And then there was elements from amongst our people who worshiped the ancestral gods. They go all the way back to the time of the original Olmecs, okay, and the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Zapotecs and Toltecs. These are our ancestors, okay? And it's important for African American people and for Latin American people and even for European American people to study the history of Native America, because this is the closest history to us. This would be the reason why we are dealing with the things that we're dealing with now, okay? We came here and we still transgressed against the laws of the Creator. We take that very light, and people who come to our culture take what's happening in the world today very light. But this was a serious thing to the Hebrew. This was a serious thing to the native. And we're indigenous and native to the whole world because, as you can see, these practices we can find all over the world. The only thing that differs with Native America is literally Yahweh, the Most High. This is what made the Native Americans different and distinct over all the other groups of the world, not to mention their scientific, spiritual, and mathematic achievements that fueled the modern age and are the very reason why we have the modern, ultra-modern world today. But the Muskogee prophecies say that such destruction will take place, that we will have to return to the indigenous ways. And even these settlers will have to come back and seek the ways of the indigenous, because all else has been destroyed. We have a million things to talk about.